Checking up on the numbers worldwide, there are 18 million cases of the virus and 690,000 deaths in the United States. There are almost 5 million cases of the virus, 157,000 deaths. Some statistics are trending in the right direction over the weekend, and hopefully they will continue there. It is August 3rd. That means the first broadcast day of the month. And before I do the rundown of the big stories, what I do on the first broadcast day of the month in the first hour is reintroduce myself to the audience because we have new affiliates every month. This month, I think 5. And some I don't even know about because they don't show up on the scorecard for a while. I am, as I said, Hugh Hewitt, son of Ohio, born in 1956. I'm 64 years old. Married to the fetching Mrs. Hewitt for 38 years. But I am a grandson of Ashtabula. All 4 of my grandparents are from the great city on the lake, Ashtabula, Ohio, and I have left there at 18 after being educated in the Roman Catholic school system. I'm an evangelical Roman Catholic Presbyterian, which I'll explain another time. I think the world is divided into those who believe in God and those who don't. And of those who believe in God, I think the Catholics have it right, but I honor everyone who has religious faith. I honor people who don't, but I really do think the rational choice is to believe and believe deeply. And I was educated by Franciscans and by Sisters of Notre Dame and Sisters of Humility of Mary, and got done at John F. Kennedy High School in Warren, Ohio in 1974, went off to Harvard College, left there in 78, went out to California to work as a ghostwriter for Richard Nixon after a brief internship with David Eisenhower, and spent almost 2 years with the former president in his exile in San Clemente and then in his return to New York. After 6 months in New York, 8 months in New York, I guess, I told President Nixon I was not going to live in the city any longer and went off to the University of Michigan Law School, graduated from there in 83, took a clerkship on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals for Judges Roger Robin, George McKinnon. And from there, went into the Department of Justice, served as a special assistant to 2 attorneys general. After that, went over to the White House counsel's office under Fred Fielding and Dick Hauser. And from there, became general counsel of 2 agencies, National Endowment for the Humanities, the Office of Personnel Management, until I was nominated by then President Reagan to become the deputy director of the Office of Personnel Management. Eventually became the acting director when Connie Horner, number 1, left, and I was left turning the lights off at the end of the Reagan years. Went out to California, built the Nixon Library for President Nixon on second tour of duty for President Nixon in Yorba Linda, 1989 to 1990. Practiced law beginning in 1989, which I laid down that after 2 years ago, 35 years of practice, primarily regulatory, administrative state stuff, dealing with land use issues, waters of the United States, EPA issues, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service issues, state fish and game issues, that's endangered species, land use lawyer. At the same time, he began a broadcast career in 1990 after I finished the Nixon Library. KFI Radio called me up and said, you know, you're pretty good at this talking stuff. Would you like to be a radio host? And I said, that sounds like that beats working. And so I started a weekend gig at KFI, which is a 50,000 watt clear channel flamethrower in LA, with Bill Handel and Dr. Laura Schlesinger and Bill Press. We had fun on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. I did that for a few years, and then PBS called me up, the local PBS affiliate, KCET. They said, you're pretty good at this. Would you like to do a nightly news and public affairs show? This is before cable, and we kind of invented talking head television in LA. Myself, Pat Morrison, Kerman Maddox, Ruben Martinez, the 4 of us would sit around and talk about the news of the day. It was just a basic, an MSNBC, CNN, Fox News show, but in 1992, and then LA blew up. Did that for 10 years, gave up the radio because it was, I've got 3 kids. They're grown adults now, but they were little. I couldn't do the weekends and television every night and practice law. I've never not had 3 jobs, at least 3, sometimes as many as 5. I just kind of believe in that. And I have been writing the whole time for an OC magazine, then for WorldNet Daily, Town Hall. Then I work for the Weekly Standard, the Washington Examiner. I'm now columnist for the Washington Post. More on that in just a moment. When I went back to California, I served on the Air Quality Management District. And then I went to work on the California Arts Commission, appointed to the former by Pete Wilson, to the latter by the Speaker of the California Assembly. And then for 17 years on the Orange County Children and Families Commission, which is we spent $40 million a year on kids. It's a public health program, so I know a little bit about public health. Practicing law the whole time, and began this radio show on July the 10th, 2000. And we've done it for 20 years and a month. And we, meaning Generalissimo, who comes in every now and then. If you're new to the show, you'll hear him once in a while, come in, a couple of times a month. And Adam, young man, who was not a young man anymore because he'd been doing it for 20 years, Gentle Ben, and now Harley, as yet unnamed Harley. I haven't
Ringo.
named him yet. Well, I haven't named him Ringo yet. I have to get a sense for him. I know he's a drummer, but I'm not sure I'm going to call him Ringo. And so we have had 60 interns and 300 affiliates and 6 million people a week. We got a great show going here and great stuff. But I've also worked the CNN Salem presidential debates in 2016, after which I joined NBC News. You'll see me on Meet the Press every few weeks, occasionally on MSNBC. I had the lowest watched show in the history of MSNBC for a year when they tried briefly to see if they could interest the MSNBC audience in rational, calm thought. But they put me at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. That didn't work. And but it was fun. Learned a little bit more about TV. I've got a dozen years of television experience. But I must tell you, against that backdrop, I've written 14 books. I am active. 2 things happened of note this week. 2 things. Weekend. First, you tell me when this has ever happened to you. I read lots of books at one time, and I go back and forth between 2 books right now. Over on Sunday, I had a wonderful Sunday. I mostly read, had dinner with the kids in town where we could go outside. And one of those books is called Gilead by Marilynne Robinson, recommended to me by Bob Seawright. And it's wonderful, and it's about a 20-page-a-day book because it's just gorgeous. And then the other one is this brand new Game of Thrones successor. It's a guilty pleasure called The Name of the Wind, which my son said, you're going to like this. It's the new Game of Thrones. And so I'm reading them back and forth. And I come across a word, susurrus. Generalissimo, have you ever heard of susurrus before?
Wasn't that a Phil Collins song back in the 80s?
No, susurrus.
Oh.
In Gilead on page 63, I have loved the word susurrus for a long time, and I had never found another use for it. And I said, susurrus. So I look up words I've never seen before, and I found out what it meant. Then I put down that book. Remember, that's the book, Gilead, by Marilynne Robinson, published in 2006. Pulitzer Prize winner. And I pick up The Name of the Wind, which I'm just blowing through because it's fun reading. And on page 470, in The Name of the Wind, I walk steadily toward the pennant pole amid a sea of susurrus murmurings. Okay, how often within an hour do you run into a new word in 2 different books that could not be more different? That's never happened to me before. That was weird. And the only other thing that was weirder than that is I mentioned to you, I have been writing 14 books in columns for 35 years. First time I ever published something was in the Wall Street Journal in 1985. Actually, I guess it was the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner. I wrote a movie review of The Deer Hunter, whenever that came out, in 1979, I guess. And never stopped writing. I wrote a column for the Washington Post in all those years, all those columns, thousands of columns, and never written anything that garnered more reaction, both positive and negative, an explosion of reaction, than the column I wrote for the Washington Post on Saturday, which I will read to you after the break. Never anything like it. And of course, Blue Check Twitter was outraged with me. I mean, they were so mad that they could not believe I had written this column, which the title the Post uses, "The Case for Trump Will Come Down to His Record." It's a strong one. Oh, the denunciations from Blue Check Twitter and left-wingers, and a few journalists, quote journalists, let their mask drop and they denounced it. But the Trump people loved it, and then the president gets up on Sunday and he retweets it. So that sets off round 2. So by the end of the day, yesterday, it's got 9,700 replies on Twitter, 7,900 retweets, 20,000 likes, and 8,500 comments on the Washington Post. Never seen anything like this column, and it's frankly shocking because it's not very controversial. It's a listing of what Donald Trump has done and why you should reelect him, and I'll tell you about it after the break. Welcome to the August 2020 first show of the Hugh Hewitt Show.